So resource, when we talk about resource is an input. All right? Resource is an input which helps you produce an output. Resource is anything which can be used to make goods and services. And this is a very important line. Never ever forget that there are multiple resources with alternative uses. Every resource has alternative uses. That's where choice comes in then. So the first basic distinction we want to make about resources is that you should know renewable versus non-renewable क्या होते हैं. ठीक है? Renewables are something which do not deplete, like solar energy. It could be the land. It could be the tidal energy, stuff like that. It's renewable. Non-renewable are things which you use it, poof, it's gone, and now you don't have it. You need more of it. जैसे coal है, oil है. What would you say fish? Is it renewable or is it a non-renewable? Non-renewable. So you fish, it depletes. I think it is non-renewable. I would agree with you. Because if you overfish, then it's gone, right? That's why you have to have certain seasons के आप रुक जाएं, इस season में आप नहीं कर सकते, because then the coral reef is gonna be empty and it's gonna get depleted and it's gonna get finished. लेकिन हमारे यहाँ जो हम जो resource की बात करते हैं, we right now. Okay. So 1.2 is define, all right? The term is define. Define is usually for a 2-mark question. They can ask you to define how is labor different from capital. They can ask you define what's land, define what's capital. Simple 2-marker, and you have to make a comparison. So what are the 4 factors of production that you've learned? Land, labor, capital, enterprise. These are the 4 factors of production that we've studied. So land is basically the natural resources. So if you were to define land, this is how you're going to define land. That land represents the natural resources that a country has. For example, it could be the forest, it could be the fisheries, it could be the mineral, the water, the soil, the climate, any of these things. But how would you define it? Land is the natural resource. Capital is the man-made resource, which helps you produce other goods and services, which includes machinery, buildings, equipment, etc. Labor is the human resource. Now, when we talk about human, we are talking about the people's physical and mental. Okay, when we say labor, that doesn't mean just the person who is in the factory on the floor. We don't mean that. Okay, it can be an accountant also. So uski mental ability comes into play as well. So which one's missing here? We have the 4th one missing, who is, we say, is the French word entrepreneur or enterprise. Enterprise could be the business. Entrepreneur is the person, the owner, who's running the business. So he's kind of like, he's like the boss, all right? He makes the decision and he's running the business. And he's like, you know what? I'm the boss. So with the boss, the thing is, we define entrepreneur, 2-marker definition aa jata hai as to who's an entrepreneur. ठीक है? Do you remember what was the definition? So our entrepreneur, he is the risk taker And he combines and organizes the other three factors of production. Without an entrepreneur, you probably don't have any kind of business that you can run. You have to have an entrepreneur. Now, if you've understood, let's talk about these two people. So we have a shareholder and we have a business manager. Which one of the two is the entrepreneur? The shareholder, you know what shareholder is, right? Who's the shareholder? Who's the shareholder? बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. Okay, so my question to you is, so shareholder, is he a risk taker? Is his money at stake? Is this shareholder managing the day-to-day operations? Does the shareholder manage this? He doesn't. So he has one, but he does not have the other category. Let's talk about the manager. Is he a risk taker? Does he have stake in the business? But does he manage the factors of production? He does. So that means neither of the two is an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is an individual who starts up the business, he has money invested in it, and he is there on the day-to-day operation of the business. Are we clear with this? So that is who an entrepreneur is. So one of the clarification we must make, for example, if there is a question and they're asking, and they've given you a little small write-up, and they're asking you to identify land in any business. So even in marking schemes, we have seen that they have mentioned that don't give credit or don't give marks if a kid has written that for any business, the land is the site. Site matlab the zameen on which the factory is operating or something like that. They say that's the last case scenario. Usually, whenever you're talking about land, you want to come up with some sort of natural resource that's involved over there. But the site in itself, the place where the building is, never give marks for that, the site. Now, if it's like an agriculture, then the zameen, the fertile land, that's fine. That's a good resource. Then you can say, okay, for agriculture, the fertile land is the land natural resource. Otherwise, if it's like a burger shop, and I say, okay, for a burger shop, the land is the site on which the building is made, they won't accept that site. For that case, you might have to say the meat or the vegetables are the land or the natural resources involved. They'll give you credit for that. Or if it's like a fishing business, you say the river or the fish is the land. They will agree with that. Okay? But never the site. Now, whenever you're using the factors of production, one of the differences that we have is that every factor of production has a reward. Who owns these resources? We say people own the factors of production. People own the land. People own the machines. People are the labor. People are the entrepreneur. And when they give these factors of production to make something, for example, you produce a car for, let's say, 30 lakh rupees. That 30 lakh rupees has a breakup which goes towards the land, capital, labor, and enterprise. That 30 lakh will be separated between these categories. So then we talk about the rewards that you get for each factor of production. The reward for using land is the rent you get. The reward for capital is the interest that you earn. The reward for labor is the wages and salaries. The reward for the entrepreneur is the profit that they earn. And you add them all together, you will get 30 lakh for the car. Right, so the four factors of production, land, also known as natural resource. So, whenever in the question they say define land, so you can say they are the natural resources. If they say define natural resources, then you'll say it's a part of the factor of production, land. All right, you get 1 mark for that, and then you get mark for examples. Confusion, normally what happens is people feel that because it's land, it has to be the zameen, the site at which the business is. But since we're saying it's any natural resource, so even like rivers and seas can be considered natural resources or land. Okay, so it does not necessarily have to be a flat piece of land where something happens. Like, for example, for agriculture, it's actually the fertile soil land which is important. Okay, because if you have land and it's not fertile, you can't do agriculture on it. So this is how it works. Even like mountains would be considered land because you can get a lot of minerals and rocks from it. Okay, the second one is labor, which is the human resource. Okay, now human, if you were to define what is human resource, well, it's the labor in the factors of production, and it basically mentions the physical and the mental contribution of people, right? Physical in the sense that in which they require hard labor work, in which they have to maybe pick stuff, keep it somewhere, or athletes, it's all physical for them. And then the mental would be like an accountant who's using his ability to do good math and calculations. So it could be both physical and mental ability. Capital, this is where a lot of mistake happens, especially if you're an accounting student. In accounts, capital is the money, right, which makes everything possible for you to buy assets and conduct business. But in economics, capital is defined separately. It's not the money, all right? It's the man-made resource. Okay, it is something which is produced by man, and it is going to help you make the good that you want to produce. For example, machines or factory building, these are all man-made stuff, and with machines you're producing goods and services. People generally don't buy machines to use at home unless they're like washing machine, which is a finished product, and you bring it home and you use it for your utility. We're talking about machines which help you produce other goods and services. All right, so usually businesses invest in capital, which is the man-made tools. So don't confuse yourself with the accounting term of money. Entrepreneurs or enterprise is the business or the owner who, for 2 marks, you're going to define that they are, number one, the risk taker, and number two, they combine the other three factors of production, land, labor, and capital, in order to run the business and make profits. The risk factor is that they can lose the money that they've put in, they can make losses, they'll have to bear the losses. And combining and organizing factors of production simply means that they are responsible for day to day operations.